In this video, we're going to talk about the area and circumference of circles. When we talk about circles, we need to talk about some of its traits. We're going to talk about the center of the circle, which is right here. This is the center, right there. And we're going to talk about a segment that goes from the center of the circle. Whoops, there we go. Sorry about that. From the center, every time I hit the mouse, it comes up, that pop-up menu. The segment that you get from the center of your circle to the border of your circle here, this is the radius. That's what we call the radius. And also, the segment that crosses the circle and passes through the center, this whole segment here. I'm sorry, this is not straight. It's a straight segment that goes from one end of the circle to the other, and it passes through the center. We call that the diameter. Now notice that the diameter is made up of two radius, or two radii. That's plural for radius is radii. So from the center of the circle to this side of the circle, this is radius also. And also on this side, from the center to this side, this is also radius. So I can say that the diameter is the same thing as 2 times the radius. Okay? That is equivalent. So to find the area of a circle, I need to know the radius or I need to know the diameter. If they give me the diameter, I can figure out what the radius is. Okay? And here's the formula. Area is equal to pi r squared. Pi r squared. Pi is an irrational number, which we approximate by 3.14, but the truth is that this decimal number is very, very, very long. It never stops. It never repeats itself. It's a non-repeating, non-stopping decimal. That's why it's an irrational number. And we abbreviate it using the symbol pi, and 3.14 is the approximation we use for it. Some calculators will have a pi button, and if you do, then do use that because that gives you a more precise value for pi. Let's see an example. Find the area of the circle. First thing you have to do is you have to know your formula. Area of a circle is pi times r squared. In this example, they give you that the radius is 7 centimeters. And you know this is the radius because it's a segment that goes from the center to the border of the circle. Okay, there. So that's radius. So over here, I'm going to write that area is equal to pi times 7 squared. Area is equal to pi times 49, and area is equal to 49. We always write the number in front and then the pi symbol at the end. And since this is area, this is a squared unit, and in this case it's squared centimeters. Sometimes they will ask you to leave your answer expressed in terms of pi, so you would stop here. But if they ask you to give your answer rounded off to the nearest tenth or to the nearest hundredth, then you would have to go ahead and do one more step, which is multiply 49 times the approximation for pi. Okay, and you can go ahead and do that in your calculator. I don't have one with me right now. But you would multiply these two out and then give your answer rounded off to the nearest tenth. If it says to the nearest tenth, that means 1 decimal place. If it says to the nearest hundredth, that means 2 decimal places. Okay? Now, before we go to the other slide, I want to do another example here to the side. Let's say I give you a circle. Ooh, that came out pretty nice. And I gave you the diameter. And I tell you that this diameter is 10 inches. And I want to find area. Okay, so the formula for area is pi r squared. So let's plug in what we have. Notice that I need radius. I don't have radius, I have diameter. So the radius in this case would be 5. Remember, the diameter is 2 times r. Okay, so the diameter would be 5 squared. So the area is equal to pi times 25. And remember, we write our number in front and the pi symbol at the end, and this would be squared inches. And again, if they want you to leave it expressed as pi, then this is your final answer. But if they want you to round it off to the nearest tenth or nearest hundredth, then you would multiply by 3.14, okay? And you can do that in your calculator. There you have it. Now let's do using the area of a circle. That means they give you the area and you find the radius. So let's write our formula. Area is pi r squared. And let's plug in the information we have. Area is 380 pi r squared. Now, I want to solve for r, so I divide both sides by pi, like so, and I get that r squared is equal to 380 divided by pi. Okay, now I don't want r squared. I want to know what r is. So to find r, when we have r squared, to find r, what we do is we take the square root on both sides. And this gives you r equals the square root of 380 over pi. And we always write our variable to the left. 380 over pi. And this would be feet. Okay, so if they want you to leave it expressed in terms of pi, this would be your answer for radius. Otherwise, if they want you to find radius rounded off to the nearest tenth or hundredth, then you would go ahead and do one more step, which is in your calculator, you write 380 divided by 3.14. Do that in your calculator and see what you get. And once you have this value, you take the square root of that value, okay? And that would be your radius in feet. That's all you would have to do for that. Now let's talk about the circumference. The circumference is like perimeter in polygons. When we're talking about polygons, we talk about perimeter. And perimeter is when we add the addition of all sides. Addition of all sides. Since the circle is not a polygon, then when I measure around the circle, if I take a tape measure and I measure all around this circle, that measurement or that length around the circle, that is what we call the circumference. So it's like a perimeter, but we're not adding sides because the circle doesn't have sides. It's round. Well, it has millions and millions of sides. They're so small that you don't see the edges. But when we go around and measure around the circle, then we call it a circumference. And there's a formula to calculate the circumference of a circle. The formula is C is equal to 2 pi r. You might also see this other formula, which is C equals to pi times d, where d is the diameter. Why are these equal? Because in the original formula, 2 times r, that means twice the radius, and twice the radius is your diameter. So you can either do 2 times r times pi, or you can do pi times d. They're equivalent. So let's see this example. Find the circumference of the circle and you're given the radius. So circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. And that equals 2 times pi times 4. Now, you know multiplication is commutative. That means I can move these factors around. So 2 times 4 times pi is the same thing as 2 times pi times 4. And that gives you 8 pi inches. Circumference is not area. It's a length that goes around the circle. So this would be inches. And again, you can leave it expressed as pi, or you can go ahead and do one more step and multiply that by 3.14. You can do that in your calculator. And that's how simple circumference is. Just apply the formula and find the circumference. Now, you can also be given the circumference and asked to find the radius. Let's say, I'm going to give you an example here. Let's say I give you a circle, and I say that the circumference equals 30 inches. And I want you to find R. First thing you do, you write your formula for circumference, fill in the information you have. Circumference is 30 equals to 2 pi r. I want to find r, so I divide both sides by 2 pi. And that gets rid of this 2 pi here, and you're left with r is equal to 30 over 2 pi. I can cancel out some terms here. 30 over 2 is 15, so I would have 15 over pi is equal to r. Or, when we write our variable to the left, 15 over pi inches. That would be your radius. And again, you can go ahead and substitute pi for 3.14 and divide 15 divided by 3.14. That should give you 4 something or 3 something in your calculator. So I hope you've understood these examples on area and circumference. They're pretty simple. If you need to go back and watch this again, practice on your own, and then check your answers. You're welcome to. I'll see you in the next video.